Hello, everyone. I'm Bo Mason, Commissioner for the Utah Department of Public Safety. Today at approximately 12:20 Mountain Standard Time, political influencer Charlie Kirk was shot at an event at the Utah Valley University. He was taken by private vehicle to Timpanogos Hospital, where he later passed. The Utah Department of Public Safety will be co-leading this criminal investigation to find this killer, along with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We are working in unison with the County Sheriff's Office, the local police department, and the University Police Department, all of which have been very cooperative and fully engaged in this process. Shortly after the shooting, we did have a suspect in custody, George Zinn, but he was released from custody after we identified that he did not match the shooting suspect and was not an accurate person of interest. However, he has been booked into the county jail by Utah Valley University Police Department for obstruction of justice. We do still have an active investigation for the person of interest. This incident occurred with a large crowd around. There was one shot fired and one victim. While the suspect is at large, we believe this was a targeted attack towards one individual. This is a tragic moment in our state and in our country. As we heal, we encourage everyone who is struggling with news of the incident to call 988, our state mental health crisis line. In addition to that, our partners with the FBI will also be discussing other ways we can communicate through the public for tips and other information. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This most certainly was not a mental illness-induced shooting, but an act of political violence. And I want to state that at the beginning. And I think that the violence is brought about because of woke ideologies. And so what I want to do is show a clip of Bishop Barron talking about the dangers of wokeism. Now, I was waiting to see if Bishop Barron was going to respond to, this breaking news, and he did respond, and he provided some very shocking details about his personal relationship with Charlie Kirk, and specifically about how he was going to meet Charlie Kirk in 10 days for his interview program, Bishop Barron Presents. And he also had texted Charlie Kirk 2 days before. This is what he said. I'll just read his full announcement from Instagram. I first met Charlie Kirk about 4 years ago when I was in Phoenix for a speaking engagement. He reached out and invited me to breakfast. I was deeply impressed by him that day. He was a man of great intelligence, considerable charm, and real goodness of heart. I reconnected with him just last year after I saw him debate 25 young people who were, to put it mildly, hostile to his views. I texted him that I was so struck by how he kept his cool and his charitable attitude in the face of some pretty obnoxious opposition. I then asked him to appear as a guest on my interview program, Bishop Barron Presents, and he eagerly accepted my invitation. He was scheduled to come to Rochester in about 10 days. The last contact we had was 2 nights ago, after I appeared on one of the evening news shows to talk about the Religious Liberty Commission. He texted me and told me how much he appreciated what I said, and then added, "I'm excited to join you on your show soon. God bless you." Now listen to these words of Bishop Barron. The last sentence shows what was most important to Charlie. He was indeed a great debater and also one of the best advocates in our country for civil discourse, but he was, first and last, a passionate Christian. In fact, when we had that breakfast in Phoenix, we didn't talk much about politics. We talked about theology, in which he had a deep interest, and about Christ. I know I'm joining millions of people around the world in praying that he rests now in the peace of the Lord. So Bishop Barron was talking to Charlie Kirk just 2 days ago. And what I think is so important to see is that first and last, as Bishop Barron puts it perfectly, Charlie was a Christian, and he was doing what he did because he was serving the Lord Jesus Christ. So be sure to pray for his family and be thinking about his family. As a father myself, just the fact that he has 2 babies and a wife and what they're dealing with just because some person got so mad over a few ideas that he had. What kind of crazy society are we living in where you just shoot people over ideas? Anywho, let's see what Bishop Barron has to say about woke ideologies. And then I also have a Democratic congresswoman responding to this news so we can have the full range of differing opinions on what has happened here.
Listen, I want to talk to you tonight about wokeism, not because I like it, but because I hate it. And I think it's having a massively deleterious effect on our culture. It's found its way into almost every nook and cranny of our civilization now. One of our major political parties is largely organized now, it seems to me, to support wokeism. But I think it's very important, everybody, if we stand against it as I do, that we do so in a sophisticated way. And to recognize that wokeism is not a ephemeral phenomenon that came out of the summer of 2020. Wokeism has a long and easily recognizable, it seems to me, intellectual pedigree. And the more clearly we grasp that, the more creatively we'll be able to engage it. Wokeism, I would say, is a popularization of critical theory. It's a popularization of critical theory. Critical theory having made its way now out into the streets. What's critical theory? Well, it's a movement that obtained largely in the French and German academies in the middle of the 20th century. Think of people such as Max Horkheimer, Theodor Adorno, Herbert Marcuse, Jacques Derrida, Michel Foucault, maybe the major names. But critical theory found its way in the late 60s and 70s into the American Academy. Well, there it gestated, it seems to me, for several decades, and then broke out as a kind of bacillus into the wider bloodstream of the society, indeed in that summer of 2020.
All right, so quick pause. Overall, Bishop Barron attributes wokeism to the assimilation of critical theory into the university and ultimately, after that, into the society at large. So we should note that ideas have consequences, philosophies shape culture, and ultimately, this is what leads to the violence. And depending upon the philosophy, the theology, and the ideas that you have, it will either lead to a society that flourishes in virtue or disintegrates into violence. And the question is, which ones are we imbibing? Which ones are we learning from? And so it's important to see that this insidious ideology first started by infiltrating our universities, and that's precisely where this Charlie Kirk shooting took place. But now it's beginning to seep so much into our society that it's actually producing all sorts of violence. Let's jump ahead to the Q&A where Bishop Barron takes a specific question on about wokeism.
How can we demonstrate to people that this ideology actually leads to ends that are quite sad and harmful?
Yeah, well, I think it's obvious. I think it shows up in fact that when you walk down this path of I've got my values, you got your values, we're going to vaguely tolerate each other, we don't have real coherence in the society. We don't have real communio. We just have a sort of vague collection of individuals tolerating each other. So I think that's obvious in the very antagonisms that are evident in our society. Go on social media any time of the day or night, and you want to see a Hobbesian antagonistic society. So I think it's very plain that the disaffiliation from religion and the denial of objective moral and epistemic value has conduced toward a very contentious and litigious and dangerous society. I think that's plain.
So given that, and if there are individuals that are claiming continually that it's relativism, whether in truth claims or in morality, are we then just left with simply a power struggle?
Yeah, I think we are. That's the problem. That's exactly what happens. And Nietzsche was right. I mean, so if God is dead, well, then values are gone, because values are grounded metaphysically in the supreme good or the unconditioned good. If that all disappears, what's left is the will to power. And who are you to tell me that I shouldn't assert my will whenever I can?
All right, so we're going to conclude with a Democratic congresswoman and her response to the Charlie Kirk shooting. I just think it's important to reiterate what Bishop Barron is saying. A woke society is an antagonistic and dangerous society. He uses the word tolerate a lot in that response, but I think what we see is that we're at a rupture point within our society where toleration is turning into full blown political violence. And the main point is that wokeism leads to a power struggle. And where there is a power struggle, there is an assertion of one's will over another. And that is a perfect example of what happened in the Charlie Kirk shooting. One person decided that they were going to will and do something and assert themselves over another. And that's what we saw. It's kind of like we're seeing what is going on in the Middle East and has been going on for, millennia within the Middle East has now gone Western, if I can say it that way. We're living in a terrorist country. And if we can't see it that way, I think we're failing to fully comprehend the weight of what is happening with these shootings. All right, let's conclude with this Democratic congresswoman.
This afternoon. I think what has just transpired is tremendously disturbing. It is the latest evolution and instance of political violence in the United States, and it must end.
Congresswoman, what message do you have to your fellow lawmakers regarding the political environment? What message do you have to your fellow lawmakers regarding the political environment and the rhetoric that has been put out in the media?
Beyond rhetoric, we need to talk about action, and we need to talk about, yes, there are words, but most importantly, we are in a job of leadership. We are in a job of action. We are in a role and a position where the American people are looking to us to do something about this. And every single day, people are dying due to gun violence in America. And every single day, there are people in this building that continue to vote against doing anything. They vote against universal background checks. They continue to support legislation and also remove any way to block the mentally ill, to block extremists, to block people with histories and records of domestic violence from getting guns in their hands. So are we going to do something about this or not? We have a political assassination that happened at the same time as a school shooting where children are dying on the same day, a week after a shooting at a Catholic school where children were gunned down while praying. Are we going to do something, or are we going to argue over rhetoric? That is my question about this. We have to pass gun safety legislation and stop this.
All right, so there you have it. I don't think the main issue here is gun legislation so much as soul transformation. Even if people don't have guns, they will find something else to use. It does make you wonder, though, to be fair to her position, if there were more gun legislation, Charlie Kirk might still be alive. I'm certain that somebody would not find a way to go up and knife him in that crowd. The issue, though, is you can't legislate based on what might happen, but what has happened, I guess I could say. And again, the issue of political violence has existed long before guns. Swords, arrows, knives, poison. If guns go away, will young people start making at home bombs? And I don't think that'll be any better than if they had a gun in their hand. The reality is that no amount of guardrails can outdo a sinful human heart with a mind set on destruction. And may that be an ultimate reminder for us that, and I think that's why I'm showing the clip of Bishop Barron, unless there is a fundamental change in what we teach ideologically, the philosophy and theologies that are, imbibed by a culture, it won't matter if we have gun legislation. The soul has to be transformed. And I think that's what Charlie Kirk would say to all of us. The main issue here is turning to Jesus or not. And unless our country, every single human, turns to Jesus, we can expect this radical disintegration, this dramatic antagonism towards others, this will to power rather than letting down our arms and loving others as we love ourselves. And that is the ultimate solution. That is the ultimate solution to our society's peril. Not legislation, but a new heart that loves God and therefore loves people. So be sure to remind somebody today of that. That's what Charlie Kirk, I'm sure, would want you to tell them. All right, that's all I have for this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Remember that Christianity is Christ, and without him, there is no Christianity. See you in the next one. Peace.